Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Co-Living Live, your front row seat to the future of shared living, community building, and real estate innovation. Whether you're a property investor, operator, entrepreneur, or just curious about the co-living movement, you're in the right place, right? Today's hot topic is how to capitalize on the co-living surge, because co-living isn't just about the trend anymore, but it's about a global shift and how people are choosing how to live and how to work and connect. So we'll break down a little bit the largest, some of the market insights, share real world strategies, and hear from the experts, Dustin, Geroski, and Tracy, who are in the front lines of this rapidly evolving industry. Super happy to have them with us today. So please make sure that, grab your notepad, join the chat. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments, and let's dive into how we can ride the wave and turn community into opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Welcome, 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 Tracy and Dustin. I'm so excited to have you guys on. How are you today?
We're great. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
No, the honor is all mine. I'm super excited to have you on. You guys are like huge leaders in the co-living space. And, there's so many questions from people in the community as far as like, how do I get started? What's the right direction to go? And, we all started there. Right? When we started focusing on co-living, that wasn't probably the first thing we focused on. We had other things, and very popular dropping into this shiny object syndrome, like Pace, has always very well identified it. And so, I would love to hear a little bit for you guys to share, right, with everybody that's listening to us live on how did you get to choose co-living as your alignment, right? What got you there? And let's go ahead and start with you, Tracy.
Sure. Well, some of my very first rentals have been co-living going back into the 90s, right? Just it wasn't a thing, but organically, I needed to, find ways to make my rents work. And so I kind of did like house hack co-living kind of thing. And that worked out really well. And I got used to that. I lived like that for years. We lived in Hawaii for many years. And it's very common there to have, multi-generational homes and multi-generational living. And so it's just kind of been a thing. And some of my first rentals that I picked up were organically rent by the room. In Hawaii, we turned a multifamily into a large multi-generational home. For me, I'm very passionate about co-living as an affordable housing option because I spent a lot of time as a young adult really struggling with housing, spent time living on the street, and housing for a single person was always very challenging. So it just kind of seemed like a normal progression. And then all of a sudden it became a thing. And we're so excited that we have the opportunity to support people in their journey as well and help other investors become educated and have the tools and the confidence to go out and do this on their own.
Absolutely. I think that is such great feedback. Dustin, how about you?
Yeah, so I was born in the 90s when Tracy started her co-living adventure. But one part of the reasons we collaborate, those we have very similar interests, and then we have different pieces that complement. But the way I got started co-living those when I first moved out, for college, went right into some co-living right off campus. And so I've lived in many different types of student co-living focus. And then as I just continued going through school, I lived in co-living like in different countries as well. And I really like though that you mentioned early on, it's not just a quick little trend, it's like a global shift. And so I experienced it firsthand, but then when I was studying in college, undergrad and grad school, I saw from the financial perspective that co-living it wasn't just a fad, it was like a world necessity. And so I lived in it and I studied it and I was like, I really like this. This is what I want to focus on.
That's amazing, and I truly appreciate that feedback. If you guys don't mind, I'm just give me one quick second because I'm hearing that it's not streaming on YouTube. So give me one moment so I can go ahead and connect.
Take your time.
Yeah, one moment. What is happening here?
Dustin, can you give our hand? I'm not sure that you can, but just wondering if you know. I think it's just the start button or something, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did. I clicked on the join live, right? Which is why I got that started. But I'm not sure why it's not streaming.
As a backup,
I was just about to say the link was dead. I had to click your profile pic to get here. Okay.
Okay, let me try that. Let's see.
Thank you. I'm trying to go to YouTube, but apparently AJ was on my computer, and now I'm trying to get in here.
Yep. So we are live. People just have to go. The link brings them to the link. I think that we shared perhaps brings them to like a stagnant page. But if they click on your actual picture, and then it'll actually bring you to the live, because I'm on it right now and I can see.
Okay, perfect. So click on the picture to go live. All right. The good thing is that it's all being recorded, so we're able to keep going. We take it from there. So
love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I apologize for that little glitch, but it happens, I guess, first time you go through all of this. But I really do appreciate you guys mentioning, right, that it's just a shift. It's not a trend, right? That we're definitely hitting some need in the community and trying to get this done, right? So what about your like the group projects that you guys have been working on, multiple projects together? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we got a couple going on. It's mostly co-living focus. We do some flips on the side. But Tracy,
we do. I forget about that.
we're kind of past it on that.
But we should be closing on that in a couple of days. So that's good.
Yeah, Tracy, we have a few co-living going on. What would you say is your favorite?
Well, there's one of them that is going to be my favorite, but we're not ready to share that just yet. That's just internal to our current investors. So our current investors get to see our deals before anybody else. So it's still with our current investors. But otherwise, we have two recent projects that we raised capital with equity partners. Okay. Dustin, you want to share what our Mount Everest is?
Yeah, so after teaching the co-living semesters, we realized there's a lot of barriers teaching inside of Sub 2. And one of those big ones, besides knowledge, know-how, finding a deal, is just raising that capital. And so our Everest, like inside of Owners Club, PACE is teaching us to set 5-year goals and just chip away at them a little bit each day. And so we have a joint Everest that is helping 10,000 people, students in and outside of Sub 2 Gator, basically buy their first co-living deal.
That's amazing. Is this a project through Equity Partners that you did through Fractional?
Yeah. So Fractional is a great platform that allows you to raise fractional capital, which means you can raise smaller amounts of capital, which then opens up the pool to more investors. So we opened up the minimum investment at $5,000. And when somebody invests in a project with us, they are true equity partners. So they actually own the real estate, they're on the HUD, they get cash flow, appreciation, all that good stuff like you would as an owner, because you are an owner, and you get to learn all the way through. We're going to help you learn the whole process of co-living, all the ins and the outs, even so much as how do you build a solid team so that you can scale? Because as you mentioned earlier, offline, we were talking about the importance of having a really solid team in order to be able to scale efficiently.
Amazing. So talking about teams, right? If you're looking just to get started, because a lot of times people are saying you really shouldn't start by yourself or try to do everything yourself, because there's always someone that is has more expertise in certain areas. Obviously, they have more strengths that you guys can support each other. As a person that's just getting into co-living, what would be your suggestion? Would it be to form their team to kind of get started? You know, we've heard about kind of just get yourself involved into a JV, you know, maybe merge yourself into a project, connect a property with a buyer. What would be for first time, what would be your recommendation?
I think it depends on their skill set. If they have a lot of time, they could either find deals or find capital partners and bring them to existing operations.
Mhm.
That's probably the fastest, or one of the
Mhm.
fastest, or just be a direct investor in a deal. That's probably the fastest.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends on each situation. But it's either you have like time, skills, or money,
Okay.
and then what you're lacking, that's where you'll find a team and just find a way that it fits.
But I want to add to that too, because I agree with everything you just said. And I also think when you're just getting started, in order to get a team, you have to have a vision, very clear vision. You have to know what it is that you need help with, or at least a really good idea. And you've got to have confidence in yourself. Nobody's going to want to come and work with you if you go, hey, yeah, I kind of sort of think I want to do maybe some co-living, and I don't know, maybe I need help with that. As an operator or
Yeah.
anybody, you're going to just say, you don't know what you want. So, and I think a lot does go to what is their goal? Do they want to own a full-time business? Because we can tell you, owning a full-time successful business where you're bringing in 50, 60, 80, 100,000 a month in revenue is a lot of work, and it takes a large team. So if that's not if you don't want to work 16, 18 hours a day, don't start a business, right? Invest with other people, take your capital, find trustworthy partners and invest in their projects and let them do the work for you. And then you're going to get some nice cash flow over time. And, so we meet a lot of people that, they're retired and they're like, yeah, I want to, just like make some cash flow. And so I'm going to get into co-living. We're like, cool. All right. And start to like get their feet wet. They're like, oh, this is a lot of work.
Of course.
Yeah. There's a lot of steps into having a successful co-living project.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are your projects into a pad split model, or all of your co-living projects in pad split, or do you use like Airbnb or other platforms to rent your rooms?
You talk about
Yeah,
that?
so we're because we do have a pretty large Everest helping 10,000 people. We're sticking with a lot of like what Dan Martell, the guy that wrote Buy Back Your Time, one of Pace's mentors, we're really sticking with a lot of his concepts. And so
Okay.
what I mean is we are a pad split because it's scalable. We can buy back our time with it. We can focus on what we do best. Like there's certain activities that Tracy and I know that if we just do those, like our business really can grow
Right.
compared to other activities where it's like you'll save, 10, $20 an hour, but in reality, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And pad
I'm
split.
go
Oh,
ahead. No, please.
I was
please.
going to say, one of the things we've learned in Owners Club over this last year that's been probably one of the most helpful things is stay in your lane. So Pad Split, they're marketers by trade. And then they've also developed a system in which you can rent by the room successfully. They help with tenant occupancy and tenant screening. So we're not marketers, and we don't want to bring on a marketing team, right? Our Mount Everest will essentially end up with about 500 co-living properties. We would need our own marketing team to do that. I don't want to manage a marketing team, right? And so we're just staying in our lane, like Dustin said. And so Pad Split does a phenomenal job of marketing our properties, helping get tenants in place, helping us navigate tenant issues and concerns. And it's, like Dustin said, super scalable.
Absolutely. And, I appreciate that. And the comments that you had been mentioning before, as far as like what you need to understand your goals, right? If you are planning on working, 8 hours a day and you just want to shut down at 5 because you have other commitments and responsibilities, going into the business as full-time may not be the right fit, but you can definitely invest your money and put it with people that, like you guys, that can actually scale the business and bring them the passive income that they need. Right. And I think a lot of the opportunities that people are also trying to identify, you hear so many, well, I want to do co-living for vets. I want to do co-living for single parents. I want to do co-living for kids that are aging out of foster care or traveling workers. Right. So I think it's very hard to really like hone it into one area. So you definitely need to like speak with the experts and kind of be guided with those to better understand like how to identify your market and where really you guys can expand. So you guys have been using fractional for, getting people to invest with in your projects and being able to give back in return, right? Because you're teaching them the process and stuff like that. What is the most valuable piece, right? Because obviously education is part of the process, right? When somebody is investing and they're like, oh my God, for $5,000, I get to learn everything and then I'm bringing it to my portfolio. But out of all of the benefits that come with investing through fractional with you guys, what are the most important benefits that you guys see offering to those that are investing?
It's a great question.
I'd say there's a couple of layers that we're doing. Like our existing investors, so the 5,000, that's, I think we have 70 investors at that level, or 55.
Yeah.
And then we have some larger ones where they're in a category what we call like mastermind members. Both are going to have unique access to us. Like we're going to do pretty frequent. I don't know the exact cadence, but it'll be more intimate of like learning, talking about the deal that we own together, navigating certain things that are going on with the property, both good and bad. But the ones I can say, one cool perk, like we mentioned a third deal that we have going on, it never even made it to fractional because we just showed it to our existing investors. It's one that we want to keep more private. And so stuff like that, the learning, proximity, deal access. And so and then we'll also be talking about new trends developing.
Yeah. And I would say, like, of the learning piece, I think the most important part is literally being able to walk through all the steps. So for example, we just closed on one last week, and it was a long and so many glitches along the way, right? And so they didn't have to deal with that pain and suffering. They're going to get the cliff notes. So when we have our post-close meeting with all the investors or partners, we're going to walk through and tell them the whole experience and like why this happened and what we did. And then this happened and here's how we responded and we pivoted this way and now we did that. And so that was over a month of back and forth, hundreds of hours truly of our entire team on the phone, our lending liaison dealing with the lender, our operator dealing, with title, our realtor dealing with, getting extensions. So they're getting cash flow just as if they invested in that project themselves. And they're not having to do any of that, but yet they get to reap the benefits of learning from our pain and suffering. And we love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is just how it goes. But, that is the part of real estate that people don't see, right? They're like, oh, this is great. I'm going to buy, property. And they don't realize that it takes hours, to go through the loan application and the back and forth documents to the lender and the conversations and the answering questions. Like just getting a loan on its own is a lot of work. And if you haven't done it before, you don't know it. Right. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest benefits if you want to learn. If you don't want to learn, but you just want to put your money to work for a good cause, I think one of the benefits of investing with us is that we have a lot of experience behind our belt, like a lot of experience. Dustin and I have been doing this full time for almost 2 years, just in co-living. We've worked on this project and this model and building out our team since September of last year. We've got a rock solid team. Our partner, Kaipo, owns a very successful business in Hawaii. And so he brings this operational piece because he's experienced the growing pains of growing a large company.
And that's
Yeah.
so
So
important.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Oh,
is
I know
great.
one other thing that we forgot to mention that I think is also super beneficial is because there's this smaller group setting where we can learn together and kind of decompress on each stage together. Our goal is that our investors, partners will get to know one another and build their own relationship and partnerships. And once they feel like they've got the tools and the skills through working with us, they're going to go out and go do this on their own. And that's how we're going to really make a change on a large scale nationwide.
Right. You'll definitely be able to get to your Mount Everest because you're making the impact, you're educating, you're allowing them to expand and kind of keep growing and then taking it on their, growing their own wings, right? And being able to fly and get that. And that's so beautiful about this community, right? That Pace has built, which I'm so grateful to him because we're all here. We all do co-living, right? And we all support each other and we encourage each other and we help each other. And there shouldn't be any competition, right? This is what he's done in this community, and that's what I love, right? Where you're able to support each other. We're doing co-living, and I'm like, hey, Dustin, Tracy, come on over. Please join me on my chat. And you guys are just like so, like instantly, like okay to come on. And I was so happy and excited, and honored, like I said, to have you share your experiences and everything with everybody on, that's joining us. So let's talk about a little bit about, obviously people are starting, they need to have their vision, they're doing their goals, they can decide if they want to work full-time on this or overtime on this, or if they want to invest with a team. If they decide to go with you, that's amazing, right? Because you guys have, like you said, all the experience behind your belt. You have, a solid team that you're able to scale and you're able to bring them to those different levels. But for those that do want to do it, they want to form their team and they've decided, you know what, I really want to do this because I've had issues in my personal life and I want to be able to give back, right? So I know who I want to help. I know the cities that I want to help in. What next? What is my next?
Yeah, I want to say though, before that, because you brought up a really good point that I wanted to just reiterate, is knowing what type of co-living actually takes a lot of time, or maybe not a lot, but it takes time, because what people don't realize sometimes is if they want to work with a certain population, like vets or kids aging out or people in rehab, those take deeper relationships than just going to pad split and saying, hey, help me get tenants. That takes time of building relationships with city and county officials, government officials, so that you can actually get your rent paid for, because aged out teens can't pay your rent. People coming out of rehab aren't going to pay rent. That's, the goal is we're connecting with agencies. So I always say, if you're going to do a specialty, spend some time, just like you said, Lorena, go find people doing it, get some thoughts and advice, and decide if you have the time to devote to that in addition to setting up the home and all the other pieces. Because those populations, not just those in general, but specific populations, takes a whole extra set of skills and time commitment.
Right, absolutely. And I'll tell you, like, we started at the end of 2023, we started a sober living because we wanted to help people in sober living. So we got an operator and we did everything wrong. I'm going to tell you, we did everything wrong. We didn't vet the right person. We got a property. We did everything wrong. So we paid a very hefty educational fee for that, right? It went downside because we got the wrong operator who really didn't care and have the experience for what we were trying to do. So we didn't want to lose our property and we still wanted to make a difference. So we kept paying and paying. So that was like $80,000 down the drain 6 months later because we just were very hopeful, right? But if we would have been with the right team who really guided us, like if we would have been with Dustin and Tracy back at that point, you would have been like, do not do this. Do not do that. Like, you're doing it wrong. And we get it, but now we've found our little home, and now now we're in a different playing field, which is great. And we're not doing sober living anymore. We had to pivot, and that's part of having your business, is being able to pivot quickly when you see, okay, this is definitely the end. Let's pivot. What are we going to do? And now we're doing this successfully, and I'm super happy of that. But it isn't easy. And I know that when you're doing sober living, there's so many different opportunities I've learned through all the negatives, right?
Yeah.
That there are so many opportunities in government agencies that are able to help you and support you. You just need to make the right connections, right?
Yeah.
So I really value the input that you mentioned about that, because there are definitely certain groups that the government will help house, right? Because they don't have the funds to do so. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now they've decided, they've built a good time. We're kind of doing a little bit of a process. They've decided, okay, we just want to do co-living for traveling nurses, or for
old-fashioned co-living.
Yeah, nothing very specific, just a general co-living space. They find a property. What are they looking for in this property, right? What is their first, like if somebody's just starting off, they're wanting to take a risk, but they don't have like all of these additional funds to take a risk with. You've said you have to have a solid team, you have to understand certain key points, but what are you looking for in a property to say this is a right fit? Or what are the things that we don't want to have in a property and say this is a complete no, like I'm not even going to waste my time trying to think this is the right thing? What do you suggest there?
Yeah, I'd say right off the bat, location. Tracy and I, we always look at location. Even if you're not using pad split, look at the 20, core markets that they're spending a lot of money to identify where to do it, not do it. And so even if it's not pad split, but it's still co-living, it's the buy box is going to be really, really similar, if not identical. So looking at their core markets and then zooming in even more. Like Tracy and I someone sends us a deal. It's like, is it good? Is it not? Well, on our office hours, which we do every Tuesday, Thursday, we do this. We'll look at deals like that and be like, all right, look on ChatGPT who the top 5 employers are in that zip code. So you want to make sure you're in, a good market in general, but then who are the big employers? Like, is it hospitals, Amazon warehouses? Like, are there jobs?
Right.
And then we just keep zooming in more and more. It's like, okay, it's close to the core market. There's a lot of employment. Then we look to see bus stops. Like, ideally, we're trying to be within like half a mile of a bus stop, if not less. Like, because one thing Tracy and I have found is the city, they spend a lot of time and money to identify where to put a bus stop based on population trends, expansion, contraction. Is it a new bus stop? Stuff like that. So you can really dig deep into all this. But then once all those boxes are checked, then we'll look at a property specific, no HOA. We really like ones with at least 3 baths, like a 4-3 if we're going to convert or larger. And then we just keep narrowing down more and more, but those are some of the bigger items.
Yeah, absolutely. I think though that's a great points, right? So transportation, job market, right, gives a lot of opportunity. So let's talk about, we've identified the house. Now we're trying to look at how are we going to get investors, right? Because we may have some money, but we don't have all the money, right? And we need to get the house ready. We may need to do some demolition. We may need to, we obviously, if we're putting it up for co-living, we need to set the property up for these houses. So what are key details that the investors are looking to have, or that the investor should have ready, right? To be able to seek for those investors. Because a lot of times if they don't have the correct data, investors they're just going to pass through them. So how do they get help?
Yeah. I think that is, one of the barriers we saw that really, we created our business model based on barriers that we saw, and funding, as we mentioned earlier, is the number one barrier. If you don't know your numbers inside out, upside down, nobody's going to lend you money. End of story. If I'm looking at lending money to somebody, I'm going to grill you. And if you can't come up with those answers right away, you don't know your stuff. So it's really just takes a lot of practice and time, just over and over underwriting. That's part of why we do the office hours twice a week. And we'll talk later about how you can get access to those. They're free. They're open to anybody. So we donate 2 hours a week where people can bring a deal. We highly recommend just go on the MLS, pull a couple of properties that are on market in areas that you think are good, bring them to underwrite them like you think you should, bring them to office hours, let us go look through them with you together. And that's going to help really start identifying the weaknesses that you have. So I'd say first, you've got to get rock solid on underwriting.
Very good. Very
Dustin,
good. I love to hear that. And I love to hear that you're extending, right, and opening your office hours to anybody that wants to join.
Oh yeah.
Because it just brings so much value. There's so many people that have questions. They really don't understand what to do or how to do it, or if they should take the risk, or if they have the right property. So if they have experts like you guys to guide them, then it's a great resource to have. And I know I'm super grateful to know that that's an offering that's available. So now we're talking about PadSplit, right? So PadSplit, I know, provides you like resources as far as, they can connect you with people that can help you set up your property and get you going from there. But then there's also that option of, do I include common shared areas, or do I definitely maximize, room occupancy in the house? How do you make that determination as far as, maybe comfort over, profitability?
It's funny. So one of our teammates, I've known since I was 14, and we've lived in 2 co-living properties together, roommates. And shared living quarters has never been a good thing in any co-living I've personally lived in. It's never. So that's my default. Like we had interesting roommates in the living room and the kitchen. Not so much the kitchen, but the living room. It just caused problems, honestly. And that's just my bias experience.
For me, I'll say I agree with that as well. It is an opportunity for issues to arise. But for us, even more importantly, our goal is really about getting as many people in a home so that they have a home, something safe, secure, and affordable. I'm not saying we're going to take a 1,500 square foot home and put 10 people in. Absolutely not. We're very mindful, making sure that everybody has a nice sized bedroom. Right. But we will always turn a living space absolutely into a bedroom as long as it's large enough, because that's one more person we can take and provide affordable housing. That's just our model. Right. Does not mean that we disagree necessarily with other people. We know lots of friends that they want to have shared gardens and a yoga studio and all the things. And I love that for them. That's their business model, and that's amazing. That's just not our business model. And I think it all works as long as the numbers work.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So, and then how do you guys secure like your oh goodness, like now my vocabulary is stuck, but you're over. Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think about the words, but like your turnover, right? How do you try to minimize turnover in your properties, right? When because I know like some people are trying to look for community, and in my head, and I could be totally wrong, right? Up for discussion is maybe like the shared common areas brings in that sense of community, but maybe it doesn't, right? So I'm just curious, right? How do you do project the turnover rates with the properties with the properties
Dustin can talk. Yeah, Dustin can talk. Our underwriting is very
well, we like to base as much as we can off data, and so we look at PadSplit to source that data, and they can see, you and I can open a free PadSplit account, and it'll show some, but they your pad split rep can really pull back the curtain and look at a zip code, who the high performers are. So it takes a lot of that guesswork out. They can see, oh, this person has the best occupancy, 300 plus days in the living room, or maybe they do. I don't know. We
Right. Or
found
maybe they've got TV in the room, or yeah. And so then we can dig in to find out what are they doing that we can replicate.
yeah, because certain parts of the country too, there's different cultures,
Right. Different
and
needs.
so instead of guessing, you just look and just say, all right, who has the best occupancy? What are they doing? Because it'll be, Miami will be different than Atlanta.
Yeah,
For sure.
all data driven.
Yeah. And like you said, it all depends on the demographics and the cultures, the regions of the country that you're serving. So absolutely. And then what about when you're working with pad split, for example, and I'm just speaking pad split because that is the model that you guys use, right? So do you guys have a designated representative because your property is in a certain location, or is it by region? How does that work? How does your relationship with pad split work? To get all this data as well, right? Because you're investing in future projects based on data that you're collecting from them. So how does that work?
Yeah.
No, we work really closely with ours. We just had a meeting with her earlier.
Yeah. We have one rep. We work extremely close with her. We've worked very hard to build a very strong relationship with pad split because we couldn't scale without them. So I think it's, putting in the time and showing them that I've done the work, I've done the research, I read the articles, I've looked into the data, I'm doing the thing. And now you're reaching out to them, sort of just asking them to be a second set of eyes, and they'll really appreciate that, I think. And then, it's just, we lean heavily on them for sure.
That's great. I mean, we have spoken to pad splits on numerous occasions. We have properties on pad split as well, but we actually have a question here from Israel. What markets are your properties in?
We're going a little bit everywhere.
We're going to see you next week.
Oh yeah,
throughout the country right now. Yeah, we don't really have any particular market, so to speak. We are primarily focused right now on purchasing pre-existing pad splits, and so those can be anywhere in the United States. We have an acquisition. Sorry, what's that?
Yeah, a handful in Central Florida.
Yeah,
and then we have one in Atlanta. We're buying one in Texas, but at the moment we're heavier weighted in Florida.
But we're open. Yeah, we get
as long as the numbers make sense.
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah. We have another question here from Giselle. So do you need inspections from the city to convert living areas?
Oh, good question. You want to take that? You want me to take it?
You got it.
Oh, you're fine.
I love your teamwork. Like, your dynamics are just so awesome. It's like, yeah, Dustin can answer that. No, Tracy, you got this,
we
It
try.
just shows how you guys stay on your lane. It's like, who belongs to what, which lane is who.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. We try. We're in a lot of Zooms, a lot of meetings, a lot of things together. And so we've gotten used to, just kind of, and making sure, especially I talk a lot. So I have to also pause and be like, oh, wait, let me let Dustin.
I'm all right with it too. Like, I'm okay with it.
That's right. Such a good partnership. So Giselle, to your question, if you are doing any work, that every city and county is different. So if the city that you're in, you need to learn their permitting. And obviously that's why you hire a licensed contractor, or you have a handyman that knows the rules and regulations and then can reach out to a licensed contractor if there's permitted work. So you just have to see what your city requires for permitting. Typically, electrical, plumbing, absolutely going to need a permit. If you're just adding walls, so nothing structural, no permitting. Let's say you're converting a garage, for example. Maybe you need to add a window. That needs a permit. So some of the things we'll teach people when they're investing with us, because they'll watch us do a rehab, is you'll learn things like, here's an example of a property that we're closing on soon. We need to add a half bath. We need to put up some walls, and we need to convert the garage. The garage does not need a window. but we need a permit for the bath. We're increasing a half to a full bath. So you have to be mindful of your timeline, right? We do not want the inspector to come in on the property while we're putting in a half bath and hear the contractor banging away the hammer, putting up the additional wall upstairs. Now, the wall upstairs legally does not need a permit. But if the inspector is in your house and hears someone banging a hammer, he is going to want to know what is going on, and he is going to find a reason why you need a permit. So just, we love to help people also learn about how do you navigate things like that, right? Because you can't just do nothing. You can't just sit on it, right? And so we've got a strategy of how do you navigate that while also waiting for that permit.
Yeah, here's a good example. A learning lesson, as you called it, Lorena. So we have a past foot in Orlando, and this is one of the earlier ones. And one of the neighbors got mad at us about parking, called the city, reported us as an illegal Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
So they come, they check it out. We thought we were in the clear, and it turns out that one of the bathrooms wasn't properly permitted, but we already bought it. It was already done. And so
you buy it like that?
It was the garage, like they had already had the garage finished.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, the city was like, they saw what was going on in 8 beds, 4 baths. They're like, all right, whatever. But you have to fix this bathroom. Or if you don't start it, it's going to be $1,000 fine daily. So we had to provide documentation that we started it.
Wow.
And so anything permitted though, yeah, if we're not trying to like skip that. Like Tracy mentioned, plumbing, electrical, windows. Yeah, we're pulling permits.
Always. Yeah. We want to make sure everybody is safe and sound and that we're following all of the permitting rules and regulations.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I remember when we were up at Squat Up in the sessions with all the tables that you guys were hosting, the co-living table, you're mentioning we hold really high reserves for any issues that come up in our house, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. What is the type of reserves that you need for these co-living properties? Because anything from like issues that you just mentioned to plumbing issues, right? Septic, if you have a septic system, I know we've had those issues. Mm-hmm. What is the type of level of reserve percentage-wise, right, that you should hold to resolve these types of concerns if they should come up, that people should consider when underwriting?
Yeah, so we're really aiming for, and we use Relay. Like they have a savings account. You'll get, a little bit of percentage.
Love Relay. They're
so
great.
A little bit of interest in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, percent wise, we're really trying to keep like of the ARV 5 to 8%. And a lot of people would say that's too much, but
if I can't have a minimum, if I don't have a minimum of 20 grand when I close, I'm not happy with that. So every rental, even before I got into co-living, all of my rental properties, 20 grand, we do not take distribution unless we are at 20,000. And that might be crazy, but that is the way that you just don't get into trouble. You could fall into COVID again. You could have a tenant that stays in your property for 2 years. I mean, there's all the reasons. So to us, that's really important to have a solid reserves. Yeah. And, things happen too, even before close or during the loan process, right? Something changes. The ARV comes in, or the appraisal rather comes in low, whatever the case may be, and you're short. You go to close and you're short. If you have no reserves at all, you're going to lose your property if you come in, if the appraisal comes in low. So even though you account for 20,000, not every project closes with that 20,000 still in the bank.
Right.
Often closing costs were more than expected. Insurance ended up coming in higher. Appraisal came in late, all the reasons, because it's real estate.
Yeah. Like when we raise for a property, we do 2 things that we like to really just emphasize is we're extremely conservative on our underwriting. So it's like the reserves, we estimate a rehab, we budget double. But at the same time, our investors, they're still getting the equivalent of if they park their money in the S&P 500, which most people in the finance world, they'd heard of, put your money in the S&P 500 and it's done 9% the past 100 years. Like a lot of people are familiar with that. So we're conservative, but it's still a decent yield to the private money partners.
And
In
as long as
addition to the equity.
yeah.
Sorry.
And once again, if the numbers make sense, you're gonna get the investors, you're gonna be able to get through with your property, and you're gonna have enough reserves to take care of these issues. So one of the issues that I was hearing about, and maybe you guys can you guys can chime in here, is there's actually somebody in our community that has a disgruntled pad split guest staying in their house, and they need to get evicted. Have you guys had any issues on having to evict any of your guests staying at your properties?
Knock on wood, I've never had to evict a tenant ever in any property, but
amen.
The eviction process. Sorry, no, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, we haven't had to evict. This is the property I had a while ago. It's a co-living. Didn't have to evict. They fell behind, and we just asked them, be like, hey, because so part of the pad split is like they get a profile. They really don't. It's not quite Section 8, the voucher. Like they don't want to lose their voucher, status.
Right.
But no one wants to get kicked off of the pad split platform because it's like if you mess up, like you're going to lose access to a lot of living spaces. So there was one that fell behind once, and we just said, hey, like, can you just move out? And they did.
You were very lucky.
Yeah. So, what people I think forget is that you're a landlord. At the end of the day, you are still a landlord. So if you're involved in co-living, you can rent a house with one lease or not co-living, pardon me. You could just do a single family home. You have one lease, or you could do a co-living where you've got 8 rooms and 8 leases, right? So you have 8 people that could potentially cause an issue and not want to move out, and 8 evictions or 1. So you're taking a little risk, hence the reason that your cash flow is so much higher. But if somebody is not paying rent, you're still having to go through the eviction process, which is no fun, and it's just is what it is. There's no easy way around it. It can be challenging because that person is now affecting all the other people in the home. So different, obviously, than a traditional single family home. Right. But it's just how it is, So the goal for us is, I will say a couple of things I think people can do is have a property manager. Have a property manager. We get calls and texts and emails all day long from people. Hey, I just had one the other day. It could potentially even be the same person. And I even stepped in and reached out to my pad split rep to see if they could check. And my pad split rep comes back and says, they've got a bazillion issues that their tenants have made a complaint on pad split and they're not resolved. There's currently a room that's been vacant and unclean for months. So, and then when I reach back out to that investor, he goes, oh yeah, you know what? My partners are actually dealing with the management. I guess I should figure out what's going on. Guys, don't do that. Like when you're underwriting, if you can't afford a property manager, you shouldn't buy this house. Don't think that you're going to property manage. Sure, one house, okay. But remember, you have 8 people. That's 8 problems. That's 8 people that can text you every day that says, the toilet's clogged, my air conditioner doesn't work, Joey ate my peanut butter, the barking dog and the neighbor, you need to deal with it, the Wi-Fi's out. If you don't get back to people and get those issues fixed immediately, they will be disgruntled and they're going to want to move out, right? They're not going to pay their rent, all those things. So if you can't afford a property manager, you probably shouldn't be an investor. Like, I'm sorry. People are going to disagree with me, but honestly, guys, you'll never be able to scale if you don't use a property manager.
I think that's key, right? If you're just looking to have 1 or 2 properties, maybe that's okay. Maybe. Yeah. But if you're planning on scaling and really make this a full-grown business, you do need to think about property management, asset management, especially with pad split, right? Because they're the ones who collect and do all the, they're actually getting the guest in, they're actually vetting, going through the backgrounds, right? They're collecting the rent. You can get just an asset manager that can just take care of all of those guest communications, that are able to take care of, any issues, service issues that are with the house, and just take care of that to ensure that you don't increase your turnover, to make sure that you are allowing also the business owner to continue expanding, and you be able to take away that weight from their shoulders and allow them to not have to worry about all of that. So I'm very excited that you think that way, because my partners and we are actually doing asset management. So we are doing asset management for co-living, for vacation rentals. We're actually, going to be launching soon. So I'm very excited.
That's exciting.
But those are it's very, very, it's very rewarding to hear how much value you see in having a property manager or an asset manager to take care of these properties, so you can scale.
I don't want to see, like Gloria asked a great question. When can you get when you get a notification about a new member, and you've got to approve or disapprove? Oh, a new member. Oh, sorry. Okay, I misunderstood that. I thought you meant an issue. What I was going to say is, with our property managers, we don't do anything. Like we set a threshold, usually $500, that kind of thing. If it's something that costs below that, we don't even hear about it. We just know about it when we get the invoice, sees what the issue was. We don't get any issues. And then our asset manager on our team, she would get, if it's beyond, let's say, a $500 threshold, she would get that issue and then would deal with it from there. But
same with the new member. Like, it's all property manager. We put the enhanced setting on the pad split profile. Like, it'll lower the bottom 15% high risk individuals, and then the property manager, in addition to that, is vetting.
And that's fantastic, because you're able to get solid guests to stay on your properties, right? Because money isn't everything, especially when you're having them stay at your properties, right? If you're just thinking about the bottom line, a lot of the times you're looking at people that could essentially be not caring about staying on the platform, right, with pad split, and they could essentially, if they get very disgruntled, destroy your property, put God knows what down the toilet, really mess things up and just add additional headaches to you that are definitely not worth it. So
agreed.
Appreciate it. So we do have another question here. I'm sorry, I think I was missing it. So what is a typical vacancy percentage that you adjust for when you're underwriting your properties?
So nationwide, and this is from pad split, nationwide their average is 90% occupancy. So we are using that because we are only buying in like densely populated areas.
Yeah.
And so we feel comfortable, and that's just based on what we've experienced as well. So that's what we typically stick with.
Yeah.
I love that.
And we have a free co-living calculator. So before we hop off, we'll give you guys the where you can find that. And the calculator that Dustin built for us to use just has all those automatically in there. It's got cost percentage wise for utilities, maintenance, all that, reserves, property manager, vacancy, all that good stuff. So it makes it really easy as you're learning.
I love it. I love it. It's just additional value. Once again, your lunch sessions, right? Is that what you were saying? You were calling it your lunch sessions for
under our office hours.
Office hours. There you go. Your office hours. I must be hungry.
Oh, I love that.
You're offering the office hours. You're offering this, co-living calculator, which I think is great. You've provided so many great resources. We'd love to know, where do you see co-living? Where do you guys see co-living in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's interesting too, when you're talking about all the free resources. The reason that we just kind of throw all that stuff out there, a variety of reasons, but one of the big ones is, as Pace said, it's such a big problem, affordable housing, that even if all of sub 2 does co-living, it'll barely put a dent. And so that's why we throw it out, because it helps build momentum, traction for everyone.
Yeah, we feel like there's no competition, like you said earlier. Like, there's just so much need and so many people that want to invest in co-living, that I think it's amazing that we all offer a different model and a different way to support co-living. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love that. I really do. So let's take this opportunity for you guys to share where they can find you, where they can, sign up for your office hours, and how to get your free calculator.
Yeah. So we have a community of co-living people. It's called, it's on Fractional, which is where we raise capital. We've created a community there called Co-Living Semesters. There's over 700, I think we have 750 individuals all interested in co-living. It's very similar to a Facebook group. We've also started a Facebook group. We'll kind of maybe transition folks, kind of have both. But if you go onto our Fractional page and join our community, you can access the link for our co-living office hours. You can access underwriting videos. You can access the free calculator. We've spent a lot of time and put together a co-living ebook. That's actually what was used to do the co-living semesters in the Sub 2 community. So if you're in Sub 2, that's also available. We've got 8 hours of content that we did for Sub 2. And then you have 700 plus people that you can connect with, chat with. We always put articles, recent, all kinds of stuff. So we're always engaging with our community there. You want to give them our links for that, Dustin?
Yeah, so we have 2. They go to the same place, buydealswithtracycoa.com, buydealswithdustin.com.
Yep.
And then we're both putting content out on YouTube that's just, interviewing different people within the co-living world, finding unique trends, styles, stuff like that.
My YouTube is very focused on inspirational stories of people involved in co-living, because that's really what kind of sparks me. I very much love speaking and motivating and inspiring people with my story. And so I love the folks. So if you're listening and you are interested in co-living, or you're involved in co-living and you have, really passionate and inspirational story about that, like how you got here, please reach out. I'm always looking for new and exciting people to interview. All of my social media is at Tracy Coa.
Absolutely. Well, Dustin, Tracy, I can't thank you enough, right? This community can't thank you enough for everything that you guys give, for the outpouring of love and resources, right? That's how it all translates. For those that do want to continue in making a difference and really help this, this surge, right? This shift, help improve and provide quality of life to those that need it. And I'm once again super honored to have had you on. I hope that those that were on with us that had their questions answered were there. Great. If you still didn't get them answered, feel free to reach out, because Tracy and Dustin have always been very responsive. They're always there to help, and I look forward to seeing them continue growing and get them to achieve their Mount Everest. So thank you guys for being on with us.
One last thing. Yes. We're going to be in Fort Lauderdale next week. I know you're really close to it.
Yes, absolutely. I really wanted to do it. That date actually falls on a date that the regional team for SoFlo Sub 2 was hosting a meetup in Miami, and I'm part of that regional team. So we're trying to make our adjustments to see if we can go ahead and, honor your visit. And so that way everybody can see you guys live, and then we will go ahead and adjust our schedule for that. So we're just trying to see what we can do to make that happen. But I'm super excited if you guys are here. I'm sure it's going to be super successful, and everybody that gets to see you live will be a great opportunity.
Yeah, I'm super excited to come to Florida. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And Dustin, I was super excited because Dustin was one of the first people that I connected with, right? We connected on a Zoom, on one of those, just set up 30-minute calls on Calendly. Like 2 years ago, we had just started together. So it was really great to see how much he's been progressing and what a leader he's become in our community. So I know you've moved out from Miami, right? You're a little bit further north. So it'll be great to have you down here in South Florida, and you get to enjoy wonderful hot weather.
I'm so excited. Oh, you have no idea. So excited. Lorena, thank you for having us so much. And we're also just so excited to see your business grow. I think you're going to be bringing so much value to people. So it's really exciting.
Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate
Thank you for all the questions. Awesome comments. We truly are very grateful, guys. We really are. Thank you.
Thank you both. You have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.